wanted to be here, and I'm particular. I'm all over it. It's a really good picture. And a dear friend of mine, Jason Alexander, has made the trip. The trip from, where do you live, Jason? Where in LA do you live?
You don't need to know that.
Okay. He lives in the upper reaches of LA, and he drove down here at 5 in the evening at the height. I mean, you know, like terrible things happen and you want to know the truth, like the Hamas and stuff like that. All you have to do is get him in a car and start in Los Angeles to drive down here. They'll say anything, give you any information you want. It's so torturous. Okay, the lecture is spoken.
So, we were so excited to have you here, and when you agreed to come and actually have an interview. So the big question, of course, was who's going to interview you? And our first thought was, we are not worthy. But we found someone who was more than worthy, another superstar stage and screen. And between the two, you have won every single award there is on this planet. I mean, really. So, ladies and gentlemen, very talented Jason Alexander.
See, but the difference between Jason and me is that I needed a hand to get up out of that sofa. And you just
I sprang right up.
No, you.
I was sitting in a
Muscles.
Prius my Prius, it was so long, the battery didn't make it. I had to go to the fuel. It was so long.
That's the latest game.
I think it was 4.
Did you have that written?
I didn't. No, I'm spontaneous. I come up with this. However, the questions I'm going to ask you today, I actually sat and thought about, and I wrote them down.
We won't need that. We have so much to inquire.
We have so many things, and I've seen this. Now, you haven't seen the documentary yet, right? You have. Have you all?
No.
Jason, that's what they're doing.
You know, usually a Q&A follows the motion picture, but we do things differently. When you're with Bill Shatner, you do things differently. First question is, how many hours did it take you to get down here?
Well, I had a driver.
You had a driver.
But because we're so, I don't know what the right word would be, commanding or insecure. When there's a driver, excuse me, I think you should go in the next lane.
Yeah.
Why don't you just speed up a little?
Sure.
I mean, you're constantly doing backseat driving.
Sure.
Because he's not driving exactly the way you would drive.
And let's face it,
So you
piloted a starship across the universe.
You know, I gotta ignore the driver who's probably better at it than you are. You just gotta ignore him. So I would read.
You would read. I can't do that. The only time I ever get nauseous is reading in a car. I can't read in a car.
You don't get nauseous looking at anything I'm doing on screen?
No, I get inspired, and you know that. It's absolutely true.
You know, when you don't.
Well, I'm interviewing you. I'll tell you when to talk.
You know what is disturbing is, you know, we're used to audiences. Everyone's at work, huh? They're lying down. Yeah, we got people in an audience who are lying down.
Yeah.
I've never had that experience. I've had the experience of people in seats getting up and leaving. Sure. I've never had the experience of them. They're here for a period of time. They don't care if the film plays or not.
The chances of getting a standing ovation from this row is very, very good.
They're eating and drinking and holding hands.
Right. Yeah.
Are these
So just so you know, now I'm going to actually ask him some questions. This is, by the way, the worst microphone I've ever worked with.
No, this one here is the
That
worst.
one, yeah, okay.
The reason we're so far apart
Is my wife has COVID. I don't.
and my wife doesn't.
Right. So we're standing 6 feet apart under the illusion that I can't get my air over to him. He got me into college. he got me into college as an acting major at Boston University because he doesn't know he did it. Well, I told him the story, but he doesn't know how he did it. And the way that he did it is, I'm just going to go. Oh, sorry. The way that he did it. Oh, thank you. The way that he did it was, I never knew anything about acting, and I discovered Star Trek when I was 9 years old, 10 years old, and it was a large part of the reason that I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to do exactly what he was doing, and I knew nothing about acting, and so at one point, I knew just about every line of all 70 plus.
Are you serious? You knew them better than I did.
Oh, absolutely. And I could say them along with Bill at any given time.
What are you doing now? What is that thing? I don't do that.
To get into college, I had to do a monologue, a dramatic monologue, and I did the first monologue from Equus, the opening monologue that the psychiatrist has in Equus.
With the horse.
Yes, and I've never had an acting lesson, so I channel my mentor, and I go with one particular horse called Nugget. He embraced it. Hell digs its cheek into a sweaty brown, a stand in the dark forever.
Jeez, that's compelling.
It's not bad, right? You know? So I do this monologue, and the gentleman, the professor at the university, stands up and says, I have no idea if you're a good actor or a bad actor, but that is one of the finest Bill Shatner impersonations I've ever seen. And I'm intrigued, and that's how I got into the school. Now, it turns out that gentleman's name was William Lacey, and you may not remember him.
I do remember.
Bill Lacey and Bill Shatner did Shakespeare together.
Yeah, but
in Canada when they were very
you're
young.
being dutiful. The fact of the matter is, you don't know how talented this gentleman is. He's not only a great comic, but he's a great dramatic actor. But he sings. He's musical. He's a musical comedy actor, and could play anything in the music. And he's multi-talented. And I'm
Stop. Wait, you're embarrassing. I mean, finish your thought.
I don't know.
I'm here to talk to you. I'm
Okay.
going to ask you. These are big walking points.
So his wife has COVID. That's why this is far apart.
Yeah, that's why we're separate. So I watched as always, and I'm not kidding, you always fascinate me. I watched the documentary and I had a wonderful time. So these are questions that were inspired by the documentary, but not necessarily from it. What is, in your opinion, sir, a life well lived?
Well, that's a complex question. And, there are many pools to sip from in telling their story. For example, I'm putting together 2 speeches. One is on in April, when the solar eclipse is on. I'm going to be in front of 100,000 people saying something. What am I going to say? Okay. Prior, 15 minutes before the eclipse, I'm going to say something. They said, say something. So I've been trying to put together the beginning of the universe and boiling it down to this moment in time in Indiana, when we're all looking at an event, a celestial event that is 12 billion years old, and maybe older because we don't know what happened during the intervening 12 billion light years. What I'm saying is, there's a whole history of life and knowledge, and the acquisition of that knowledge is part of what compels me. So the life well lived is the acquisition of, like the banyan, not the banyan tree, the tree in the garden, or the banyan tree in Lahaina. The magic of nature, to know the mystery of the things that exist in nature, to be aware of the mystery, to be aware of all that, the sky, the earth, the awe of existence. If you could stay aware, try the beauty of having an old friend talk to me and be aware of how grateful I am that you're here, that we're talking in front of a group of people who are listening because they're here to listen. It's a meaningful moment. The life well lived is being aware of every moment that you can, not to let a moment slip by.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I
Boy.
more and more,
Boy,
more and more I understand. Here's what's scary. As I get older, I understand him more and more. It makes more and more sense to me. When you look at your career, what do you think? Are you proud? Did you miss something? Are you the actor, storyteller, the observer that you wanted to be? Do you look back with it and go, yeah, I got there and I did it, or I did it sporadically, or there's something I wish I could have added that I didn't?
Well, I tell you, Jason, and I wonder if you feel the same way. I've gotten really, I'm doing a show called The Unexplained right now. One person. That's really good. But for me, The Unexplained is a real exercise in approaching something fresh. Like it's a narration, I'm on camera, but it's also voiceover. So you could, like I hear everything, and in 1840, the ship came into the, But in what I'm doing is in 1840, the ship came in, and you're involved in it. You're indigenously into. So that was what I must have been striving for all my acting life. I started 6 years of age. The camp play was about Nazis. And they wrote a speech for the 6-year-old child to say, I had no idea the implications of what I was saying. But apparently I was leaving home, I had to leave. Nazis are coming, I have to go. I'm saying goodbye to my dog. When the curtain went down and went up, the audience, comprised of people from Europe who had just come over after the war, were crying. Wow, I made the people cry. And my father came up later. My boy Kirk gave me love. And in that moment, I became an actor. In that instant, in that flash, and I vividly remember carrying me. My dad saying, "It's my boy Bill," and the audience cried. And I strived with little success to begin with, but more and more as I began to think, what am I doing? What have I done? That was terrible. Trying to improve all the time, trying to reach that place where you and the words are one, where there's no separation between what you're saying and what you're feeling and what your intention is and what the character's intention is. I mean, if you're playing somebody with a different mental set than you've got to be playing that different mental set. But if you can live it, and if you can breathe it, and that's what I have tried to do with not as much success as I would like to, but the older I've gotten, the better I'm getting at it.
Because I'm just reacting to what you said. One of the things that I admire about what you do as an actor, and why I found it inspirational, you have guts. I mean, you commit to choices. One of the things that was astonishing to me, because I really am a student of the original Star Trek series, there were episodes that were kind of goofy. And I think of myself, if I were the actor on the set and they handed me these pages, I'd go, come on, guys, really? The Rock, I'm going to talk to The Rock and the Lizard Man and have this speech. But your commitment to the possibility of the drama in those moments and the possibility of what is this man who's committed his life to exploration and communication and connection to these races and beings and possibilities, called for a performance that would swing for the fences. And in doing so, you more often than not, as far as I'm concerned, elevated material that was okay and made it spectacular. And I can give you a great, I mean, it's a well-written speech, but the one that you probably hear often is the risk is our business speech. If you look at that on the page, there's not a ton there. There's not a lot of things that an actor would go, oh, I'm gonna make this choice and that choice, and the intention is this, and the thing is that. But the reason I think all of us that know that speech know it so well is because you found choices and connections and intentions and were pulled by them, but it required a level of commitment to the truth of those words that I and most actors I know would have looked at and gone, can I take this down a little bit? Can I play this a little closer to the vest? You never allowed yourself to run away from that.
I was in great demand as a storyteller at a B'nai B'rith camp where I was a counselor, probably about 17 or 18 years old. And the kids in the camp were 10, 11, 12, 13, who had seen their parents and their relatives massacred, sliced open, shot. These were kids that you couldn't fool around. These were killer kids. These kids could be killers. Their emotions had been so hammered and so toughened by the life they had led being so young. And the only command I had over these kids who were only 5, 6 years younger than I was the telltale heart. The man is buried in the ground, but he's not dead. This is in the blanket camper bunk. They're all in bed, and I'm in demand as the storyteller. And one time he came with, and the kids were held, and I was in demand. And the only reason I would come to their bunk is if they behaved themselves. Otherwise, I'm not coming. It was spectacular.
Yeah.
So that commitment to those stories was part of what we're talking about. See, if you can say, I saw the spittle come out of his mouth. It was green, it was green. Are you intrigued? Want to hear more? Then you better eat your eggs in the morning.
Yeah, the power of that commitment was extraordinary throughout your career. You and I share a thing in common where we both, you more than once, but both of us at least once, played an iconic role. And when you eventually choose to leave us, Kirk will probably be the most iconic figure creation that you leave behind. Does he represent you well? Are you pleased with him?
When the management decided the time to end the cast that I was part of, that 6 or 7 movies we made, when they decided the box office was $100 million, the glass ceiling, we never made more than that. The movies cost $30 million, so the rule of thumb 3 times, they were making $10 million. You know, roughly. They weren't making a great deal of money from the movies. So they thought, well, let's put in the next generation cast. They'll be bigger. As it turned out, they made $100 million too. But they were paying their actors 3, 4, 5 times more than they paid us. What was the question? I was blinded by that thought.
Does Kirk represent you well?
So, I came off of playing Alexander the Great just prior to Star Trek. I'd studied Bud Alexander. He's one of my favorite people in history. His legendary, he was 18, 19 when he started a campaign. His father had been king of Macedonia, and now this young athlete with the legend is this horse that he, what was the name of the horse? What was it? Bucephalus. So Bucephalus was the horse that was afraid of its shadow, and he noticed that, so he brought that horse into the sun so he could avoid seeing his shadow, and trained this horse so he became this war horse. He was a legend, and yet you could understand him. And I had somewhere heard the phrase, the look of eagles. He had the look of eagles. Alexander, he was staring into the future. And I brought that with me to Captain Kirk. I didn't do it deliberately, but I had been a Shakespearean actor for several years, and I had this rhythm of speech that and a view of a role where you are committed. The language, Shakespeare language, doesn't lend itself to reality necessarily. It lends itself to a heightened reality. And that's the way I played the Shakespeare, with a heightened reality. So it was, once more, into the breach, dear friends, once more. So once more into the breach, dear friends, it's God. So that commitment to Shakespeare, to Alexander, flowed into those early years of Star Trek. And that's what I was bringing. The rhythm of the speech, the commitment to grander language, making the language a little richer than Little Richard.
But when you look back on Kirk, are you proud? Is that what you wanted him to be? Did he shape the way you wanted him to create?
I'm making a lot of albums. The first album I made was Decca Records so many years ago asked me to do an album. So I said, all right, I'll do an album, but the concept of the album I want to make is literature and song. I want to link the literature, which will write new music to it. So using the speech I can remember best, once more, to be or not to be, to be or not to be. That's the question. Whether it's nobler, that speech, with music written under it, segues into the song. It was a very good year. It was a very good year. I was 21, and then I was 25. And so the contrast between literature and music, and the lack of contrast, the identity of both, which is rhythm, music, the onomatopoeia of English is music, and music is usually written to the sound of the words anyway. So the hills are alive. You can't say the hills are alive with the sound of music other than with that rhythm and that melody. That's what I was striving for. So there's a speech by Cyril de Bergerac, which ends, I may climb to no great heights, but I will climb alone. Segues into a drug song. Mr. Tambourine Man. Mr. Tambourine Man. Mr. Tambourine Man. I get on the Johnny Carson show. And the producer says, after rehearsal, he says, that's 6 minutes. You can only do 3. You want to do the song or you want to do the literature? Oh, well, the song is sexier. All right, here's William Shatner, his new album, Mr. Tambourine Man! And Johnny Carson's going, oh, no. That was a commitment. That was laughed. I mean, it became the butt of many jokes. But I never stopped knowing that I had something in the lyricism and the melodic line of words that could be made into music. And I've made many albums trying to perfect it. I've got a new album, a children's album now that I'm writing with Robert Sharno and Dan Miller. And we've got a children's album. Termites, elephants and termites. Elephants and termites. It's a children's album, 6 to 12. What the hell's that? Elephants on the plains of Africa, where there are no trees, walk around, and in these prairies of grass, the termites build their towers, 12 feet high, masticate the mud, and they've got really complex air-conditioned turrets with millions of termites in there. And the elephants have an itchy behind. So they'll walk up to it, it's so good, and destroy the mound. The mound has a glue-like mud. So the elephants trample it in and make a little depression. The rain comes, and the depression gets a little larger, gets a little larger, gets a little larger, more than that, and finally gets a watering hole. Fish from eggs that birds flew over, dropped the eggs. Fish, crocodiles, animals from all over the land of the forest come to water from elephants and termites, and we made it into a song. We've written this. I'm singing elephants and termites. It's a children's, but it's so beautiful. I've evolved through that laughter, through that. Oh shit! Maybe I should stop. I refused to stop because there was things I saw that I felt, and this children's album has got to be fantastic. Got to be the whatever it is, the flag of my singing career. And when I say singing career, and I look at you with your beautiful voice, it's me trying to make music. I studied singing for a while. I really couldn't sing. And I envy. I listen with awe at the voices that sing like yours. And God, to be able to do that.
God bless you. I will give $1 million to charity if anyone can tell me how he just answered my question. I will take journeys with you wherever you want to go. All right, my final question, and I'm going to let them.
Yes.
I see no foreseeable end to you, but I will remind us all, you are 92 years old.
That's a terrible rumor that's been spread.
You talk about this briefly in the film, and I don't want to drag you into something too deep, but I heard two things recently about death and dying. I want to run them by you just to see where you sit with them. Somebody said, you know what's so horrible about death? The party is over. And then I heard Christopher Hutchins said, no, it's worse than that. The party keeps going. You're just not invited anymore. I'm 64, and I find that my relationship to the notion of death and dying has become more curious, more comfortable, less frightened, less fearful. I want to be here for a whole bunch of reasons. And you know, the one thing we never think of is, oh, we're gonna die today. I remember when Lin-Manuel Miranda, who wrote Hamilton, discovered Hamilton's diary, and on the day that Burr killed him, in the diary it said 7 a.m. Duel with Burr in New Jersey, 11 o'clock breakfast with so and so. He didn't go out to die that day. He had no idea.
Oh my Lord.
So we're never prepared. We never see it coming, but we're all going to get there. Where are you with the notion of the end?
Well, I'm obviously like everybody else, I'm confused. When the scene came to die as Kirk, like that lizard thing, was always, oh, look at that. Ooh, great animal. I wonder the real, oh, I wonder what it does. So I thought he would greet death in the same way. Oh, wow. That's death coming. Okay. I'm having such a good life. My wife, my kids, my life, my creative life, my inner life, the horses, the dogs, friends, talking with you. It's so joyful. I don't want to leave. I don't want to go. That's what
And I'll tell you, my partner, Peter Phil, and I, who've known Phil forever, do a podcast that Phil was lovely enough to come onto, where we explore things that make us go, really? Really? And, you know, we started with a snarky premise when we had Bill on, which was a 90-something-year-old man went into space without benefit of, you know, a medical person or training of any kind. Somebody thought, that's a good idea. Let's shoot a, you know, a 90-year-old guy into space and see what happens. But the episode became about the fact that he accomplishes more in a week than most of us can imagine doing in a year. This unbelievable drive and energy and curiosity makes him one of the most fascinating people in the world. And I will finish this up by saying, I'm not kidding, and I'm not going to get teary about this. When I was a 9 and 10-year-old boy, I was a little lost child. I was lonely. I was scared. I was bullied. I didn't know who or what I wanted to be or what life would hold. I watched a performance by this man who went, I think maybe I could rise to that. It was aspirational. Bill was given to me by my best friends on my 35th birthday. I had never met him before. He showed up at a restaurant and said, hi, I'm your present. And gave me some of the best advice I ever had about how to treat celebrity and success, some great attitudes about life, and he has been kind enough to keep me a part of his life ever since. I cannot believe I sit here as a 64-year-old man, not that 9-year-old boy who dreamt about what it would be like to meet him and be able to call him a friend. I call you a friend. You continue to be an inspiration. And what you're about to see is a man who is in process thinking about everything in life in ways that most of us cannot put the pieces together on. I think you will find it fascinating. I adore you. I give you a big kiss on the mouth, but my wife has COVID. So.
Well, maybe I could kiss the wife.
You actually.
Thank you so much. The generosity you showed here, and my, you know, I feel such warmth towards you and both of you that it's just I'm so grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.